Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I often say that your perception is reality. So you see a situation, you experience a situation, whether it's true or not, if you perceive it to be, that is your reality. Whatever you perceive is it. How do you deal with that? What about the feelings that go along with situations like that, the thoughts that are involved? We're going to break that down today with somebody who helps a lot of people as a life coach, and she is Purposeful Pathways Lifecoaching.com. Allison Cowan is back with us. Or Cowan. What am I saying? Cowan. Cowan.
It happens.
And I think I'm Steve. Allison, welcome today.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everybody.
Good to have you back here with us. And this is something that a lot of us deal with, the thoughts that come along with certain situations, conflicts, feelings, the perceptions of that. I always wonder when we say, we talk about feelings, are feelings emotions? How do we describe what a feeling is?
I tend to use the word interchangeably. There are some who disagree and believe that a feeling and an emotion are different. I've just, if I feel sad, is that still an emotion? To me, it's somewhat similar. They're somewhat similar.
Yeah. I wonder about that because it is, you say you're feeling something, but you're expressing an emotion. Sadness is an emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many emotions and feelings. You can feel elated. Is that also an emotion?
Elated would be connected for me to happy, and I would say that that would be an emotion because you're feeling happy.
Yeah. So I just think it for me, it's splitting hairs, whether it's a feeling or an emotion. And I tend to use them interchangeably just because, do I really want to split hairs over, over the terminology?
How about when you're talking with somebody and you're trying to deal with a situation? Of course, it's going to be lots of thoughts, lots of feelings. You're going to perceive one thing, they're going to perceive another thing. What if they're not seeing what you're seeing? They're not understanding it. How do you move past that? I've encountered that even recently where it's almost like you're right, you come to an impasse. How do you move past that?
Well, so within a situation, whatever it might be, there's going to be a thought, a feeling, and then there's going to be or a feeling or an emotion, and then there will be an action, and it's not like a forward moving action, but you will behave in a certain way, and then there's the result of all of that. And I want to thank Frank Macri from Thriving Coach Academy, who taught me this technique. And some people will, there's a situation, some people will go first to a feeling or an emotion. Some people will go first to a thought, and it just varies. So, you're working on, here's a situation, and you feel upset, so whatever the situation might be. And then there's usually a thought that happens right before that, and we don't catch it. So what were we thinking that made us feel upset?
I'm trying to put it into a situation.
Okay.
Grasp it better. let's say somebody did something, hurt your feelings.
Mhm.
They didn't understand or anticipate it would hurt your feelings. They're focused on doing their own thing. It's almost as if they didn't really care. How do you navigate through that?
Well, again, I do want to credit Frank because I learned this from him and his program, and just wanting to know that, this is one of his trademark things, and I don't want to be like I'm stealing from him. So the situation is neutral. So somebody didn't understand what you were saying, perhaps. Um, it's neutral. But we then have a feeling or a thought that comes from the situation. So what might a thought or feeling be that would come to you?
Um, Depending on the situation, could be respect for your feelings. Um, and we're hypothetically rolling here, but uh,
Yeah.
they didn't, let's say they did something and it was obvious that it would be disrespectful or hurt the other person, but they didn't really they see it that way. They were just on their own agenda, and that's that. And to try and make them understand that, uh,
Well, first, like I would want more clarity about what that situation actually was. So, like as specific as it can be. Um, so you had brought up like somebody didn't understand what you said. And then then you have a feeling or a thought.
mhm.
So what, and I know we're role playing a bit. So what might that be?
The feeling or thought.
The other one, yeah, it depends on what you go to first.
Okay, interesting. Feeling or thought. I think the feeling is the emotion, so that's going to be the stronger one.
Mhm.
So that would be hurt,
Mhm.
and the thought would be mm, disregard by the other person or party, disregard for your feelings. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and so, but that's like feeling disregarded is also a feeling. So sometimes the thought is a little bit tricky.
Hmm.
Um,
Can you give an example, like what it could possibly be?
sure. A thought might be, um, they didn't truly listen.
Or truly care, or truly care.
Yeah, so, I'm thinking they weren't really listening. So I feel hurt and upset.
Okay. All right. And then in the example we're giving, they didn't consider others' feelings.
So that's a thought. So you're believing they didn't consider your feelings. They didn't
Right.
consider my feelings.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Yep.
beautiful. And then when that happens, you automatically behave in a way or act in a way. How do you respond to that?
Well, you can talk to them about it and discuss what your feelings are connected to the thought that you had or their thought. Um, but if they don't see it that way, then I think it gets into the perception. They perceive it one way. I didn't think it was going to bother you. I was just going to do what I was going to do. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. All right. And then the other side, on the other side, the perception is they don't really give a crap. You know,
Okay. So when you're having that they don't care, and what would you personally do? So even before we get to the perception, what might you do? Might you lash out? Might you, um, you know, might there be an argument? Might you shut down? There's like a whole host of things that people might do in response to that happening?
Well, you have to confront it. You have to tell them how you're feeling.
Mhm.
You can't let that go because it's gonna bubble inside you.
Yeah. So, okay. So, what's happening then is, the action that is sort of happening, or the way that you are responding at first, is it's like just festering inside of you, and it remains festering.
Mhm.
And then when it's festering, what happens? What's the outcome?
If you don't,
Yeah. So this is just like a straight, and then we're gonna flip it in a minute.
if you don't confront the feelings that you have,
So somebody didn't understand what you were saying, and you are thinking they didn't really care to hear what I had to say,
sure.
and you feel upset and hurt, and it starts festering inside of you, and then there's like a result or an outcome.
I guess it would be resentment, continued hurt. What else would you be feeling? Uh,
So basically what I'm hearing is that the result is that you keep ruminating.
okay, fair enough.
Okay, so yeah, because you went back to the feelings
Yeah,
again. So
yeah.
you're ruminating about the hurt. Okay.
I think that would I believe that would be fair enough to do because it was a strong situation. And if you don't confront it, or at least let them know
Mhm,
how you're feeling based on their actions, it's just going to
mhm.
cause animosity, resentment. You're just not going to want to talk, confront. It like snowball down the hill in your brain. It's like,
Right. But so you're going through all of this. Now, the situation stays the same. So somebody didn't understand what you were saying. Um, how would you rather feel?
considered, feelings considered.
Okay. So you want to feel considered. Okay. And when you're feeling considered, what thought would have possibly come before that?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking about that. Um,
It can be a little tricky, and
yeah, what thought would come before that? Um, it goes back to the same thing that they care to um, consider your feelings. In whatever their actions are, whatever they say.
so this is where some of the perception thing comes in. So you might think, you know, that they want to consider your feelings, and um, you know, maybe our perceptions aren't quite in like, not being congruous. Um,
Well, more of in the situation that we're talking about, it would be um, you would like them to consider your feelings before they speak or take an action. Um, but they didn't. So, but on the perception side,
but now you're feeling considered. So like we're kind of reframing it a bit, and you're feeling, you want to feel considered, and you're thinking that, and I don't want to just feed it to you, but I know we are short on time. So I might just,
give it to me, baby. What do you
yeah,
got?
the thought might be, um, I believe that this other person has the potential to consider what I say. Or, I'm thinking that this person has the potential to be able to hear what I say.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Otherwise, you wouldn't waste your time. I mean, some people just don't get it, and you're just like, move on from that. But yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
and
and I know this is a little bit, and it's a little bit vague, but then, there's that action or how you start to behave. So you have this situation is the same, but you're thinking, this person has the potential to listen, and I'm now feeling considered, and what do you do?
well, you have to confront them, talk
Okay,
about it.
so you're going to confront.
You do run the risk of them not getting it, understanding it, because they think that, well, I have my own agenda and that's what I'm doing. And oh, well, sorry that bothered you. And then they just keep on in their lane. But that's now we get back to the perception. Their perception is, I didn't do anything wrong. Your perception is, how could you not consider my feelings in what you did or said?
Mhm. So then with the perception portion of it, um, how true is it? Asking some questions. Well, how true, what evidence do you have that this perception, which is somewhat of a belief, um, what evidence do you have that this perception or this belief is true?
Interesting you say that because I haven't heard that in a long time, but it's a subconscious questioning. If you say to yourself, is it true that, so you question yourself, is it true that they took an action without considering your feelings?
Well,
And
and then asking them, and that's where you talked about then confronting and talking. And, well, so they have their perception of what they were believing. And, well, what evidence, how true is it? Um,
hmm, well, let's say they did something.
okay.
Let's say they did something. They took an action that didn't consider your feelings, and that's where the challenge arose here. So now
Mhm.
you have the action. They've already, or maybe they're planning an action, whatever it might be, but you have it. They've already, that they did it or they're going to do it. That's your facts. There it is. But
Okay.
your feelings weren't considered.
Okay. And then, you know, I've seen this and I've seen that. And, you know, you said something and it hurt my feelings. And they may counter back, um, well, I didn't mean it. And that you're perceiving something that wasn't necessarily what they meant. So it can just really go back and forth until you just keep digging deeper
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
deeper.
Yep.
And it just has to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into, um, maybe somebody said something and it was a bad day. They had had a really bad day and just blurted something out that was hurtful. And then, if they're able to then share with you, I really had a bad day. And yes, I did this. And, you know, then maybe perhaps make an apology, there'd be an apology. And, the other way around, you know, you were perceiving that they were out to hurt you.
Or just didn't care.
Mhm.
Didn't even
Yeah.
like, oh well, maybe not intentionally hurt, but just yeah, I didn't think that would bother you. Now, how could you not consider feelings? And
Yeah.
then because they were on their own agenda, they're just like forging forward and not thinking about other people around them, just what they needed to do. But that's therein lies the challenge when you are trying to come to a happy medium, and
Mhm,
they have their perception, you have your perception. Uh,
mhm.
yeah, how do you deal with that? Or is it just, you agree to disagree? How do you figure that out?
Um, it just really, again, it goes back to the, it always goes back to communication. How many times um have we talked about how it goes back to communication?
Yeah,
Um, and then, about giving the benefit of the doubt. Um, because what we can perceive and what is real, we have to look um we have to look into ourselves and decide if we want to share openly, or if we're going to just stay stuck and and dig our heels in and not want to move forward, and then that puts like stress on the relationship.
yeah, yeah. And I think at that point, you just need to let your feelings out, make them aware, and wait for the next time. Hopefully there is no next time where feelings aren't considered, or they are considered, and everything, kind of works out for both of you. Um, but that's, it's good. Just have faith in that they got it and understood it. But that's a challenge too if they don't see it the way you see it. If we go back to the perception thing, they think it's one thing, you think it's another thing.
And in a healthy relationship, is it okay to have different, you know maybe the perception is a thought
Hmm.
and you or a belief and yours is different, and allowing the other person to just have theirs, and mutual respect. You're allowed to have
Yep.
you're allowed to have your thought. um and if it gets back to like it's constant blow ups about it, then that needs to be considered, and how to.
And I think it's also, everybody has their own way of dealing with things. So the other person, that's the way they handle it. They don't really, "Oh, didn't think that would bother you." And they just keep moving forward. Whereby others are more sensitive. And I think there maybe needs to be some consideration, some understanding for that for on both sides. On both
Mhm,
sides there.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
can't make somebody think the way you think. You can't make them feel the way you feel.
right, and that makes sense, and
Because they're wrong, damn it. I'm kidding.
yeah, and I just like to think there's you know what's right, what's wrong, and that depends on the situation. But I need to reframe my head here. But it's sometimes it's not the right. I know we talked about this before. You want to have this conversation, and it may not be the right time
Mhm.
for the conversation. And then I just learned something recently about, so somebody may say something that's inconsiderate, and they were triggered, maybe not by you, maybe they were hungry, maybe they're overtired,
All right. There's the
or
consideration.
something. There's
I
so
get you.
there's a lot of other things that can trigger us that we're not always even aware of. It's not always
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the other person that triggered them, but maybe what happened right before they were with you was something that triggered them. They were in traffic and that triggered them.
The understanding. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
got you.
there's they didn't again, I like sleep well, or um something's going on with their job and they're triggered by something else, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Right, right. And maybe they didn't handle the situation as it should have been handled, or you think it should have been handled because of just what you're talking about, where it just they were having one of those days. So I think there needs to be some understanding in there, but that's not a free pass for not doing the right thing in your regard. We're out of time. I'm looking up. I'm like, is that even possible? I did like a double take. Wow.
Yeah, there's just so much. I know there's so much, and it's such a complicated, relationships take effort,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no doubt.
and relationships take commitment, forgiveness, openness, understanding.
And finesse, because you could get, in that final thought here and that conversation, you're going back and forth. You got to know when to go. You got to know where instead of like bam, 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 back and forth,
Time to take a break.
or move on. 'Cause we're not going to get anywhere. The only place we're going to get is more animosity, more negativity, and it's just like, you understand, I understand.
Take a break, and but that's when they're in the middle of an argument or something. Take a break.
Yeah.
Come back when we're both calm.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Um,
And if it's that, if it's reasonable, set a time. So it just doesn't,
we had talked about that. Yeah, like what's a good time, and
accountability.
yeah, and this way you can kind of plan, and you're calm,
Mhm.
and things can be talked through in a healthier way because you're both calm
We,
instead of
we
all riled up.
we need to have a talk. The words no guy ever wants to hear. That's for sure. It has been great working with you, talking with you, meeting you, learning about you, Allison, during our
Thank you so
shows
much.
here. Yeah, this is our last one.
I know. I'm gonna miss our Thursdays.
Yeah, but I think we learned a lot, and I think we shared a lot with others to navigate relationships, life in general, and that's what you do as a life coach at Purposeful Pathways lifecoaching.com. Yeah, I know somewhere along the way we'll connect somewhere there.
Oh yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Uh,
And you know, looking forward to hearing from people. Please fill out my contact form that is up and running. So you can book with me on my page. You can just contact me with any questions on the contact form, and some newer things keep being added, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of the listeners, and I appreciate, and even if it's just to leave comments, if it's, leave comments about what you think and
yeah.
what you've experienced, and even if it's feedback that you may think I won't want to hear, I want to hear it, because
That's
that's
kind of what we've been talking about, just, open communication, honesty, starting a dialogue. But
yeah.
before,
So I want to hear it. Contact me, anything, you know, I really would have liked if this had happened. Well, thank you. I now have some new things to think about, work on, and continue to develop.
before they cut us off, I just want to say thank you. It's been great along the way here, and my gut, it's usually right. I know we'll connect some way in the future for sure.
I believe so too. I hope so. Yeah.
Thanks, Allison. We'll talk soon.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.